everyone. My name is Marielle Woods. I am a director and alumni of Salute Your Shorts Fest. My most recent film that screens there was my AFI directing workshop for women film Spin. And I'm so excited to be talking today with Auden. Am I pronouncing your name right?
Yeah, that's right. I'm Auden.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm the director of Zorg II. An animator, made it in Estonia, but now I'm based in Iowa City, Iowa.
Yeah, so I saw Estonia on the credits and on the submission, and I was like, what? So is Estonia like a place to be for animation?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of, there's a really strong tradition of animation in Estonia, as with most of Eastern Europe. And yeah, I think there's like a really great sort of community of animators, a lot of sort of, at least historically, a lot of public funds for animation, like state
That's
funding
cool.
for animation. So there's like, and there's a really great sort of international community there of animators.
That's awesome. And how long have you, so you're right now you are talking to me from Iowa, but how long have you been at school in Estonia?
I was there for 2 years. Yeah.
Okay. That's wild. That must have been such a crazy experience.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, I really like it there. In the summers, the summers are long, long days, the sun
Sure.
barely sets. And then in the winter is very good for animating because there's no sun at all. So you can just hole up.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
So talk to me about Zorg II. I mean, dude, this movie, I was in it from minute one. It is a crazy onslaught of brilliant insanity, and I loved it. You use so many different mediums and so many different like styles of animation. Is that always kind of how you work?
No, I guess the project started because I was working on a kind of more heavy and serious like pre-production. Like I was like thinking about another film, and I guess I kind of got fed up with it and wanted to do something that was much more kind of fast and loose in a way.
Sure.
And so I wrote the story, and I guess sort of my idea was, I think a lot of animators are very patient people, and I'm not a very patient person.
Wow.
So I think, I kind of designed the project a little bit around just, keeping it interesting for me. And
Sure.
even though it's sort of, a kind of traditional hierarchical way of going about it, like you start with the script and the storyboard and the animatic and you kind of work down, I think I left it kind of open enough so that I could, within each scene, when I would start a new scene, I would kind of be like, all right, what do I have? What can I do? And, each character is animated in a different way. So it just kept it fresh.
Yeah.
It was partly for me. And I think in general, at least with kind of solo animation projects, I think, the sort of energy of creation kind of translates to the end result. So if someone's kind of very bored while they're animating, oftentimes the result is also somewhat boring.
Sure. Where do you find all of because so much of what you used, I noticed, was kind of like found imagery or like little rips of, even I think there was an explosion or a fire and I could tell that it was ripped up yellow paper, but there was something written on it. Where are you pulling from for all of these collage elements?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just things I find. I have a bunch of stuff here. Yeah, I think actually we were talking about, I was just looking through it. Like, yeah, like this is like a bunch of the flames.
Cool.
And I think a lot of them are just from like advertisements, just the kind of whatever detritus of kind of like walls and other.
Are you just pulling stuff that like visually inspires you, or is there more like, I specifically want this fire to be an advertisement about this because there's like a subconscious meaning behind that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's sort of, I think the way it kind of works is I sort of like build a kind of nest of junk in the place I'm working. Like, I'll just collect advertisements, collect things I find on the street, just a bunch of stuff. And then, it kind of like start with something and then eventually like the entire floor is carpeted with junk. And then I think That's part of the fun of the process too, is like those little, other meanings and other kind of connections sort of evolve more organically just by like whatever I happen to pick up, and then they kind of come together that way rather than a kind of premeditated way, I guess.
Cool.
Yeah.
Where did the idea for this come from originally? It's so unique. I love it.
Yeah, I guess I wrote it. I was taking a trip when I was in Estonia, and I was taking an airplane flight, and I guess I was so sick of this other animation I was working on. And so I think the original storyboard I wrote on like an airplane barf bag. Like I was
Oh,
sitting there, I was like, got to do something different. And I don't know, I guess I just wanted to see how I could kind of like take the most sort of generic looking alien, like it's kind of the most generic looking alien, and see like how I could kind of create a story. I mean, the whole thing is sort of like built out of various cliches. And
sure.
even like using advertisements, it's like kind of taking the sort of stock footage or the stock
Sure.
material of like our whatever consumers world, and just sort of like putting it together and kind of making something new out of collage, through and through. So I guess starting with cliches and seeing how they can like hit against each other.
Yeah. Do you there's so much thought that goes into every frame, like the details of the world were so impressive to me, down to like the legs that were holding up the alien's television set. How much of that is premeditated versus just kind of comes out of the experience of building these frames?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it depends a lot. I mean, a lot of the times I will have ideas beforehand. Like, for example, there's that scene where they're kind of in that like very large array, like the kind of large satellite dishes.
Yep.
And I knew I wanted like doilies. Like doilies were like the only thing I could think that really matched that sort of form. And I couldn't find them anywhere in Estonia. They have cloth doilies, but they don't have I couldn't find the paper ones.
Oh my god.
Finally, I found some, but that's an example, I guess, of something that was premeditated, and I like, searched for
Sure.
that thing until I found it. But something like the legs of the spaceship, I guess I was like, okay, I kind of want this sort of like kind of weird mix of like, rather than a sort of slick sci-fi spaceship, I want something weirdly domestic. So it's probably going to be a kind of earth tone. And then I had a bunch of bread advertisements, and then I was like, well, maybe there's this Russian fairy tale Baba Yaga, which is
Yes.
this chicken, this house with chicken leg feet. It's a very creepy story. And then so I was like, okay, maybe it can be like that. And then I made these articulated breadsticks because they were stick like, I guess, originally.
Um, Question about you. How did you discover your love for animation?
Yeah, I think I kind of came at it from a weird way. Maybe it's not that. I guess everyone kind of comes to animation in a weird way. Um, I in undergrad I was sort of a Russian and studio art major, um, and I didn't really, I was quite interested, I guess, in Russian animation, but more than anything, I guess I was doing a lot of ceramics at the time, and I kind of got bored, I suppose, with like static art forms.
Sure.
And so I kind of got my start with claymation, and I made a claymation, and then I kind of, after college, I was living in California, in Oakland, and I kind of started learning, you know, just more about animation, how to do it, trying to do freelance and stuff. Um, yeah, so I kind of came out at it from, you know, from a sort of visual arts
Sure.
way, but also just kind of learning about myself.
That's so cool. It is such I took an animation class in college, and funny that you mentioned patience, because I was like, I just do not have the patience for
Yeah.
this. It's so cool and it's incredible what we can do, but I was like, I can't do this. So how long did Zorg II take to make?
I think animation took about a year or so,
Wow.
and then
And
maybe,
you're doing that all yourself.
yeah, yeah. Um, and there's a few, and then it took a while actually to do sort of compositing. There's actually more compositing than meets the eye sometimes.
Can you explain to our audience at
Yeah.
home what
So like
compositing is?
here, I actually have a pile of junk here I can sift through. For example, here's a fun one. Okay, this is like part of the explosion you were talking about before.
Yeah.
So for example, right, like there's a background on here, it's happening on a road. And so, getting rid of all that white background and putting on the other thing, combining it with the other elements, like there's another layer for the car.
So what do you do? Are you taking a photograph of that and then layering different pieces on top?
Yeah, so it's like the actual layering is happening through the computer in post. But yeah, I was just, some people do scanning, but that's, again, I don't have the patience for that. So I take a lot of photos from above, which seems to work pretty well.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, as long as you kind of have even lighting, it's sort of like scanning, and it's a little bit easier to remove all that white. And then, that's becomes sort of transparent, and then you can kind of have other layers behind it.
Do you save I saw that was numbered like number 12. How high do those numbers go?
Oh, well, my numbering system is completely idiotic. Like, let me find you something. I don't know. Like, they're all like normal animators will figure out like how long the sequence will be, and then they'll count it in like a normal sequential way. I sometimes don't really pre-plan it very well, so I'll do like a keyframe is like a main kind of pose, let's say. So I'll do like 1 is one keyframe, then 2 is another keyframe. Then in between that I'll have 1.5, and then 1.25, and then 1.125, then 1. It's just like some kind of cockeyed system.
That is awesome.
But there's a lot of them.
That is delightful. So what are you working on right now? You mentioned that you are, staying busy during COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for a little while I wasn't, but I'm finishing up post-production. I've kind of, since I've been here in Iowa, I've been working on more live action stuff, a little bit of animation, but so I'm finishing ADR right now, like the automated dialogue replacement kind of stuff for a movie I made in the fall, and then I just finished shooting another movie with my brother, kind of a narrative film that is very much kind of designed around the kind of restrictions of COVID,
Cool.
Small crew, few people, mostly outside. So it's been.
Have you ever combined live action and animation? Is that something you like to do?
I'm interested in doing that. I think it's a tricky thing to do, and I haven't really thought of a way that I would be interested in doing it yet. Though kind of abstractly I am. I guess I often feel that when you combine them, it's hard to make the animation not feel like it's sort of part of some just dream world, and then the live action feels like a kind of like realist base. And I guess I'd be interested in finding some way of combining them where they're more like on the same level.
Sure.
But yeah, I'd be interested in doing that. I've done some rotoscoping projects before, which is, sort of tracing over live action frames, and then but that's another tedious rabbit hole. I don't know.
You are just a jack of all trades. I love how you're just interested in all of it.
I mean, I guess it comes back to a lack of patience. I don't know.
Do you find that your work is thematically similar, or is the stories that you're exploring, do they relate to Zorg II?
Not a lot. I think the movies that I make that turn out better tend to be ones that have at least some element of comedy. But that's not to say they're like all funny through and through.
Fair enough.
Yeah, there's a lot of apocalyptic elements, I think, in some of them.
That is so cool. Well, I may very well stay in touch with you because animation is just not something that I have a ton of resources in, and I have a ton of ideas that I'd like to explore. I partially selfishly, and they probably won't use this on the thing, but I partially selfishly asked you if you'd ever combined live action with animation because my girlfriend and I are actually currently developing we want to shoot a COVID short where a full-grown man who is dealing with loneliness, which is something isolation is something we're all dealing with in
Right.
COVID, decides, essentially conjures his imaginary friend from childhood, which manifests as a 2D, like life-size 2D version of a crayon drawing that he's done.
That
And then
sounds awesome.
he decides he wants to have a romantic relationship with the imaginary friend now. And the imaginary friend is like, bro, we've been friend zoned for 40 years. What are you doing?
That's great.
So I'd
I
love to pick your brain.
That's great. I was just trying to see. I have a whole 64 pack of crayons, so
Oh,
I'm ready for it.
delightful.
Yeah,
Delightful. You're ready. You got the tools.
it sounds great.
Cool. Well, is there anything else I haven't hit on that you want to talk about, or any like little tidbits from production that you want to share?
No, I mean it was it's been a little while now. It was a blast. I think one thing that was really great, which I had never done before this, is working with a sound designer.
Cool.
Because I'd always kind of tried to do my own sound, but I worked
The
with
sound on this is amazing.
yeah, I was really lucky. I worked with this guy Michael McLean here in Iowa City, and you know, I think I discovered him through Craigslist or something, just like a kind of random thing. But yeah, he was just, you know, this is not a large budget film, but he, like, the amount of dedication and just sort of like time he put into the film, like, meeting with me and like working on it for like, at least like probably 6 months.
Wow.
It was just wild, and I think he just did such an amazing job. So, and that's such a pleasure to like, and that's one thing I like about live action now is just, working with other people, you can appreciate the thing you make more because it's not really your own. You're just like, when
Yes.
someone else puts sound on it, suddenly you're like, wow, it came to life.
Yes. So when it came to the sound design for Zorg II, did you have things in mind already, or did your sound designer bring a lot of those ideas to the table? Like, I particularly loved the sound that you guys were using for the fly. It was just really clever. Everything was kind of like simultaneously exactly right, but also kind of off.
Yeah. I mean, I think we had a lot of conversations about it, and I had some ideas, but I think one thing I learned from freelance, which I never really enjoyed that much, was just, I think, or actually, it's not that I didn't enjoy it. It's that I noticed that the work I made in freelance was always best when people gave me a lot of freedom. And so I think I tried to give Michael quite a bit of freedom in terms of, this is your craft, this is your art, you know how to do it best. So kind of just giving him a sense of the spirit of the movie or the spirit of a specific scene rather than trying to micromanage everything, I think was, what made it enjoyable and therefore good.
You mentioned that this was a more collaborative piece for you than others. Are you used to more, when you're doing animation, does it tend to be really kind of like a solo journey?
Yeah. I think the animation itself was pretty solo for this project. It became more of a collaboration when I was working with Michael for sound design, as well as, working with a couple of different voice actors, things like that. Yeah, usually it's pretty solo though. I mean, I've worked on some projects with other people, but yeah, I prefer working with other people if I can.
Fair enough. Well, I loved the film, dude. It was so good. It really was, every frame was delightful. So thank you for sharing it with me and with Salute Your Shorts Fest.